Everybody wants to know the secret training program that's going to take them to the next level. They want you to tell them what exercises to do, what order to do them in, how often to do them, and the special number of sets and reps that will propel their 300-pound squat up to 500 pounds in just 12 short weeks. Well, I'm here to tell you that this program does not exist, and ultimately, whatever program you're running right now is irrelevant to your long-term success. To be sure, a well-designed training program is an indispensable part of reaching your maximum potential, but no training program, no matter how perfectly designed it may be, is going to be capable of driving progress forever. Training programs come and go. There is one constant, however, that's always there, either nudging you forwards or holding you back.
Hey guys, if you made it this far, if you could do me a favor and smash that like button and leave me a friendly comment down below before you go, I would really appreciate it. The engagement is really helpful for my channel, so the more engagement that we can get, the more free, informative content, just like this video, that I can pump out for you guys. Thanks a lot, and enjoy the rest of the video.
Every single time you step under the bar, the mind. The thing no one ever mentions when it comes to strength acquisition is mental strength. Mental strength is the precursor to massive physical strength. Without cultivating the former, the mind simply cannot fathom or tolerate the brutally intense work that the body requires to obtain the latter. A weak-minded person will not appreciate the fact that every single training session is a battle, each one part of a greater war. Some battles are won and some battles are lost, but regardless of the outcomes, they must all be hard fought. When the low-hanging fruit has all been plucked, the weak-minded lifter will cease to become stronger. The good news is, like the muscles of the body, the mind can be trained and it too can become stronger. One such way of doing so is by tapping into a state that I call Autopilot. Now, this is your ace card to be used only on the top set of the day, the most important set of the day, when the heaviest weight needs to be moved with the greatest precision and when the mind is most likely to stifle high-level performance. The basic premise of Autopilot is that you're deliberately trying to black out. You are turning off your brain, shutting out your thoughts, and almost achieving a state of active meditation. The idea itself borrows from the psychological concept of flow, and it shares many of its key elements. But whereas flow generally refers to a relatively prolonged state, Autopilot is more of a brief but highly intense flash. Your intensity becomes hyper-focused on the task at hand, your adrenaline skyrockets, and the conscious brain simply turns off. Suddenly, any fear vanishes, and the body goes through the motions on its own. The weight actually feels light. Strength is enhanced and technique is dialed in. No cueing, no thinking, no hesitation. And just as fleeting as the moment, you don't realize you've achieved it until it's already gone. If you can learn how to achieve this state deliberately, then you can train unhampered by the mind and begin to explore your true physical limits. Now, please note that this autopilot technique is still somewhat of an advanced technique. It really should only be used by athletes who at least have a decent bit of experience in the weight room, whose motor patterns are already pretty well ingrained, and who want to achieve strength levels far and beyond what would be considered above average or good. The thing is, an inexperienced trainee simply does not have the ingrained motor pattern skill required to harness this technique properly. They need to be fully mentally present anytime they lift a weight so that they can focus on the external cues necessary to properly ingrain said motor patterns in the safest and most efficient manner possible. An experienced athlete, on the other hand, has already gone through this process. Their nervous system has already ingrained these motor patterns to a sufficient degree that conscious thought is no longer a prerequisite attribute in order to bring them to the surface and execute them correctly. On the contrary, in fact, at a certain point, when plate after plate has been stacked onto the bar, conscious thought can actually become a hindrance to proper execution for the experienced athlete. It can cause overthinking, which leads to hesitation, which leads to doubt, which leads to a lack of confidence, which leads to missed or poorly executed lifts. So when the money is on the line and the chips are already all on the table, the advanced athlete is much better off letting their conscious mind step to the side and allowing the body to do what it already knows how to do all on its own without the added weight of your own self-doubt. Now, there are two main components to achieving this state and learning how to tap into it at will when it is needed most. Those two components are imagery and adrenaline. The first step to achieving autopilot starts long before you ever set foot in the gym. Any elite athlete will tell you that they practice mental reps constantly. They think about what they want to achieve and how they want to achieve it, and they visualize themselves succeeding in this endeavor over and over and over again. And research has shown that this is not without good cause. It has been demonstrated that the combination of practice and imagery, so physical reps and mental reps, leads to far greater performance improvements over time than simply practice alone. Many elite athletes do this intuitively, as it is simply part of their makeup. They see and feel what they want to accomplish long before the day that they do it actually arrives. By the time you step foot under the bar to lift the weight that you've never physically lifted before, you should have already lifted this weight in your mind so many times that the event itself is merely a formality. The key to successful imagery lies in what you feel during the process. You shouldn't simply see yourself performing the activity, but you should also feel what you will feel while you are performing it. You should feel the way the weight will try to push you out of position. You should feel the way your weak points will want to give way under the stress. And you should feel yourself resisting and overcoming these urges, ultimately leading to success. Think about the cues that help you the most here and try to execute them as effectively as possible. Think about how you'll breathe before, during, and after the execution of the lift. Think about perfect technique. Think about every last detail you can come up with and practice this over and over and over again in your head until you can execute it in your mind without a hitch. And you will run into hiccups, even when you're just practicing these reps mentally. And that's really part of the point. You are using the power of your mind to help you work out the mental kinks beforehand so that when the day comes, you are able to physically execute things seamlessly without having to overthink it or have your mind get in the way. And if you can get to the point where you can really feel these things during your imagery and execute it at a high level seamlessly, then you will not only be breeding high levels of confidence, but you will also be reinforcing all those motor pathways in your nervous system so that you no longer have to think in order to be able to perform. Instead, your body will simply react on its own. Your body can only withstand so many physical repetitions with something that's so stressful before it needs time to recover. But you can augment and enhance those physical repetitions with countless mental repetitions. If you do enough mental reps when there's no pressure of failure, then by the time the big moment comes around, you'll no longer need to be consciously thinking about what needs to be done in order to be successful. You will simply be able to turn off your brain and execute. And that is where adrenaline comes into the picture. When the time finally comes to execute and the door is right in front of you, adrenaline will be the key to opening it. At this point in your training cycle, the weights you're lifting should already be heavy enough to make you nervous and excited all on their own. Otherwise, there's really no point to be attempting this type of technique anyway. Thus, the key should already be in the door. So all you have to do is turn it and walk through. That means this is the time to amp yourself up. I know that's a little bit frowned upon these days, but I have found this technique to be very, very helpful in my strength acquisition over the years. So allow yourself to go a little crazy. Force it if you have to. Scream a little bit. Just do what you have to do to get the blood flowing and get the adrenaline pumping through your veins. At some point, if you do it right, you will be seeing red and you won't really be mentally processing very much anymore. And this is what you want. This is how you check yourself out and put the conscious mind to the side for just a minute. When you reach this state, you won't need your cues anymore. Those are for the light weights and the mental reps that you've been doing up to this point. Now is the time to simply let yourself get fired up and let your thoughts go. Now, a normal lifter will do this and fail catastrophically. There are fail videos all over the internet of people psyching themselves up to insane levels and then just getting absolutely stapled, because anyone can go crazy, right? But the key with Autopilot is control. Control is what you have been practicing all this time mentally. Now, these guys will get so fired up that they will forget absolutely everything that they know, right? Their lifting technique will go out the window and they will put in the absolute ugliest attempt that you have ever seen. People like that will be better off staying mentally present. But if you've been following the advice that I've given you in this video, then you are not a normal lifter anymore. You have been training yourself for this moment every single day in your mind for as long as you can remember, building a reserve and honing your technique through countless controlled repetition. The conscious mind is simply an anchor for you at this point. So now is the time to get fired up and let it go. Turn off the brain and remove any doubt that it was harboring. Your body already knows what to do. You have trained it as such. So shift it to autopilot and go smash some PRs. If this all sounds just a little bit crazy, or perhaps even reckless, that's because it probably is. Nobody ever built massive, elite level strength without having at least a little bit of crazy in them. The process is simply too long and arduous, and the stressors, both physical and mental, can become immense. I would even argue that the mental strain that this process takes over time, cumulatively, is ultimately the biggest limiting factor of all when it comes to building massive strength. Sometimes you simply dread it. You dread the process, no matter who you are or how far you have walked along the path. But this little trick gives you a way to bypass that dread when the do or die moment rolls around and you decide that do is the only option that you want to consider.